My parents divorced when I was about 7 because my dad had admitted to having an affair. My mom and I moved out of our house and into an apartment, while my dad immediately moved his mistress into our house because she was pregnant with my twin brothers. My mom was devastated, but she quickly picked herself up for us. She returned to school, and as a result, she continued climbing up in her career. My mom adjusted better to going from a double-income household to a single income. She could contribute a substantial amount of money to my college fund. On the other hand, my dad had a harder time as he now had to support a family of 4, sometimes 5, on a single income, as his wife was a stay-at-home mom. My dad didn't have much disposable income, and so didn't contribute as much to the fund. I'll finish school soon and have a good chance of getting into my first college choice. Unfortunately, my brother, tween, was diagnosed with a kidney disease that has progressed to where he needs dialysis. My dad is drowning in medical debt, so my mom agreed he no longer needed to pay child support. The specialist suggested a different treatment for my brother, as most other treatments didn't help or stopped working, and they're running out of options, short of a transplant. Not doable now. The treatment is not covered by insurance and costs a lot. My dad can't take out a loan due to debt. Dad and his wife sat me down when I was over and asked me if I would let them borrow my college fund to pay off my brother's treatment. They offered to pay the money back, but I knew they wouldn't be able to. I really don't want to give them the money because I know if I don't get any scholarships, I wouldn't be able to go to the college I want to without going into debt myself. My future would be at risk, and I know my dad wouldn't help if I needed it. In addition, the money technically belongs to my mom. I can't just give it away, and I know she would refuse to give them the money. My dad and his wife are furious at both my mom and me and are trying to guilt me into it. I do feel terrible for my little brother. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. The money isn't yours, firstly. It was allocated by your mother for a specific thing. It was not meant to pay for her ex-husband's kids' treatments. They call it a loan, but it's not. It will never be repaid, and your mom will be out of thousands of dollars of her hard-earned money. And it was grossly inappropriate for your father to ask for your money. They need to come up with other sources, such as holding fundraisers, car washes, yard sales, GoFundMe, and barbecues do well in my area. Or stepmom needs to work after dad is off work so we can do childcare. Or dad needs a second job. They can also look into government aid or medical studies where treatment would be covered. Tell your mom you shouldn't be put in this situation. OP, you have a lovely, understanding, and clear-eyed view of this. He'd never repay you, and you'd be stuck under college debt for 20 years. Ask your mom to be the bad guy. She can have her divorce attorney send a letter telling him the funds are hers to control, and she's not giving up years of her savings for him and his affair partner's expenses. She can also tell him that she'll take him to court to end his custody if he keeps trying to financially abuse a person your age. That's a bit of a feint, since you could choose to go no contact at any point, but it might shock him out of his behavior. OP, you need more facts before you make any decision. First, all dialysis in the United States is paid for by Medicaid, even if someone is wealthy. A treatment not covered at all by insurance? That sounds kind of suspect. I would want to speak to the physicians directly. If you're adult enough to be expected to fund this treatment, you're adult enough to get the facts directly. I'm sorry for your sibling, but this is not your problem. This is a problem of your parents' making. Maybe this kid's mom ought to go get a job. Thank you. The twins are homeschooled due to their brother's compromised immune system, so Dad's wife actually cannot get a full-time job, as she's also a full-time caretaker for my brother. I've spoken to my mom over the phone after this happened. She calmed me down and told me she would take care of it. I'm 20 and live with my 28-year-old sister. I've been living with her since I was 16. When I turned 18, she told me I'd have to start contributing to her rent and bills to continue living with her. I told her that if she wanted me to pay any bills in the house, I would no longer watch her 2 children, preschooler and toddler, for free, and she'd have to pay me for the childcare. She works a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I watch her kids for her while she's gone. I'm in university and take classes online, so it's easy to multitask. Plus, her 4-year-old is in preschool half day, and I'm the one that picks her up and drops her off. Because of my contributions, I expect to be treated like a roommate in her apartment. I may not pay any rent, but that doesn't mean I'm not contributing to the household regarding childcare. She cannot afford daycare. The ones in our area charge around $2,000 for 2 children every month. She doesn't even pay that in rent. She still chastises me for certain things, like not paying for food or my phone bill. I also can barely have a social life or even a weekend job because I'm always expected to watch her kids so I can live with her rent-free, and she often uses that to her own advantage. And during weekends, doesn't come home at all. I'm sick of it and was ranting to a friend from school about it. She told me that one of her roommates was moving out at the end of this month to return to her home state after a horrible family tragedy. This roommate in particular had paid rent up front for the entire lease, next 3 months, so she would be cool with having me in that room for free until the lease ends, so I can get back on my feet and land a job that I can pay the rent for the new one. I couldn't pass up on this offer that I knew I would never get again, so I made the choice to move out. I wanted to tell my sister since it was her birthday weekend, and I knew she had plans and wasn't planning to come home, and I was going to watch her kids for her as a final goodbye. She returned from her trip yesterday, and I finally set her down and told her I was moving out next week. She started crying, asking how I could do this to her, knowing that she can't afford childcare and doesn't qualify for assistance, and that she'll have to come up with another form of childcare and must drive an hour to take her kids to our grandparents so that they can watch them, and that would be a huge inconvenience to her. And then she doesn't know if she can handle both the financial responsibilities of rent and daycare, and she'll probably have to move out, and I'm basically ruining her life. That she let me live with her rent-free in that. I'm just now leaving her and her kids high and dry, and I'm a huge idiot. Not the idiot. You were watching her kids full-time, which she knows how much that is. That's certainly not rent-free. How does she expect you to earn money to pay rent if you're already going to college and doing 40 hours of childcare? That doesn't even make sense. She'll figure it out. It sounds like it's time for you to move on. Being her 40-plus hours a week babysitter doesn't sound like much of a life. Not just the entire work week, but sometimes 24/7 on weekends. Sis is in for a rude awakening, and she needs it. Meanwhile, you deserve a chance to live your life, work to pay your own bills, and finally enjoy having free time on your days off from work like anyone else, including your sister. She will have to drive the kids. Boo-hoo. As to the people complaining about your not giving notice, notice is not the issue. The sister doesn't have the money. Sister could always stop wasting money with her regular outings and weekend vanishings too. Your sister had a deal others would die for, but as with the goose that laid the golden egg, she went and wrecked it out of greed. My wife, 40, and I, 38 male, have been married for 10 years and have 3 kids together, tween and younger. My wife also has a 19-year-old son from a previous relationship. My stepson and I have a pretty good relationship. His dad is and always has been present in his life, but my stepson currently lives with my wife and I. He dropped out of college after 1 semester due to mental health issues. He struggled with anxiety and depression for 3 to 4 years and was doing better before leaving for college. But I think being on his own for the first time triggered some setbacks, and he struggled a lot before deciding to come home. He works part-time, but spends almost every other waking moment in his room. We worked with his dad ever since he started showing signs of mental illness. therapy, counseling, working with doctors, multiple drug combinations, etc. For probably 18 to 24 months, pretty much all of our parental attention was focused on him and his issues because they were affecting everything and everyone in our family. When he was away at college, I finally felt like I could be a present and active father to my 3 other kids. I hate to put it this way, but I really felt like I was trying to make up for lost time. I also finally felt joy from parenting again, which hurts to say, but everything with my stepson was so stressful and progress was so slow. I was actually watching my kids grow up instead of missing out on everything. Now that my stepson is living at home with us again, I've tried really hard not to stray away from focusing my time and energy on my younger kids. I've tried to include my stepson in any outings or activities, but the few times he's decided to join us, it's been noticeably less enjoyable for everyone. I don't like saying it, but he can be a joy suck. He tends not to allow anyone else to enjoy something if he isn't, so I pretty much stopped inviting him along to things. He and my wife have noticed, and my wife called me out on it recently. She told me that he feels left out and wants to be included more. I reminded her of how he behaves when he's out with the family and told her that unless he changes his behavior, I'm not going to allow him to ruin things for our younger kids. She told me that he needs a strong father figure to help him through these hard times, and I reminded her that he has a father who can fill that role, but he doesn't want to live with him because his dad would require him to work full-time and contribute to the household as an adult, something my wife doesn't want to do. I told her that I was through letting him suck all of the time away from our younger kids, and I would continue to prioritize them over him. I told her that I would never ask him to leave, but that he's legally an adult, and I have 3 young kids who require my time more than he does. She told me his dad would require him to work full-time and contribute to the household as an adult, something my wife doesn't want him to do. Holy cow! He should be with his bio dad. It sounds like structure and purpose will do 1,000,000 times more than indulging him. Listen to what your therapist says, obviously, but I can't imagine they would disagree. OP, you are not the idiot. Yeah, it seems like Dad and OP are the only ones trying to do right by him. OP's wife needs to let her kid become a functional adult, and the only way that happens is by doing what bio dad suggests, finding a stable job and contributing to the household. I'd imagine most therapists would also agree with that suggestion, unless a serious condition wouldn't allow him to work. This is a problem of your wife's making. She and her son must find a solution and stop expecting the world to revolve around him. Lots of people struggle with mental health, including me. Most of us find ways to cope and live our lives in a more or less productive manner. I have all the sympathy and patience for people who try, and admiration and respect for those who try, fail, and try again. I have none for those who refuse to try and those who enable them. My husband, myself, and our 2 sons visited sister-in-law for 4 nights. We do this once a year. We live in separate states, and usually other family members come as well, but this year it's just us. I'm 32 weeks pregnant, so the travel was rough on me anyway. We drove because I can't fly, and it's a 21-hour drive. Well, sister-in-law had to work for 3 of the days that we were there, and on those days, she would come home at 4 p.m., look at me, and say, "So what are you cooking tonight?" The first 2 times she said it, I just laughed it off, and so did she, so I thought she was joking. But apparently she wasn't. We purchased food every time we came here as well, so we spent $300 on food for our stay. And for context, the guys were out fishing and stuff, so they weren't home to cook, or my husband absolutely would have. He loves grilling. The 3rd time she asked, I didn't say anything or laugh because it was getting old. But she then looked at me and said, It's the least you can do, considering I worked all day while you sat here doing nothing. This is utter BS, because I was left at the house with her kids and my kids all day because this was a shift she picked up after we got here, and her husband and my husband had already left for the day before she took off for her random shift that she didn't tell anyone about. I tell her at this point that I'd taken care of 7 kids all day at 32 weeks pregnant, when I'm supposed to be a guest in her home and shouldn't be made to do anything anyways. I made this comment because she asked me to do a load of her laundry and do up the dishes when she was at work, which I did, no question. She just got irritated with me and walked off, mumbling under her breath. So I took my kids and left to go get takeout for us and texted my husband, giving him the rundown. He immediately returned home and played mediator, but told his sister that she shouldn't have expected me to pick up house chores, babysit, and cook dinner when I was pregnant and a guest here. We left a day early, but people are saying I'm ridiculous because it wasn't a big deal and that I should have just cooked for the 11 people in the house because sister-in-law worked. Edit. The men fish every day we're here. When they get home and after we eat, around 4 p.m., all the ladies take off and do whatever they want, while the men stay home with the kids and have fires and s'mores, movies, snacks, and bedtime around 10 to 11, depending on the activity that night. It's equally split. Also, I have 2 kids. She has 5. I don't need to slow down on having kids because 7 for one person is too much. Sister-in-law picked up these shifts. She was supposed to have the entire 4 days off. She never ran it by anyone until after the guys had already left for the day. And generally speaking, the guys don't have service where they go fishing. So I had already cooked for 8 people, all the kids and myself, twice, during those 3 days, and did laundry and dishes. More than enough for a guest invited to your home under the false pretense of a vacation. The rest of the family, mother-in-law and my other sister-in-law, were supposed to attend, but mother-in-law fell ill with a nasty sinus cold and stayed home, and my other sister-in-law tended to her. We make this trip every year, and I generally enjoy coming here, so I decided to come down this way. My kids love seeing their cousins, and my brother-in-law is my husband's best friend, so I didn't want to dampen the mood just because I'm pregnant. You had my not the idiot at drove 21 hours to babysit 7 kids while pregnant. Helping out when you're a guest is reasonable. Being the housekeeper/nanny when you're a guest isn't reasonable. Maybe sister-in-law needs help in the house or an escape and saw you as her solution. Doesn't matter. She didn't ask and you didn't offer. LOL to the people saying you're ridiculous and it wasn't a big deal. Excuse me? Sister-in-law was a huge idiot. It's also extremely rude to pick up extra work shifts while you have a guest visiting who drove 21 hours to visit and expect them to babysit their kids, plus cook and clean. What kind of BS is that? Also, to only reveal that she's leaving after the men have left for the day in the belief that the vacation is going to plan and their wives are looking after the kids together is a spiteful move. Honestly, I take this as a sign that she isn't really happy about hosting you, to be honest. For future visits, stay somewhere else and coordinate the things you do together. You are the idiot, but especially the 2 husbands, and you don't have to make excuses for 2 grown men who are fathers. S'mores and movies aren't wrangling. It's fun, especially compared to laundry and real cooking with cleanup involved. Why did you guys decide to make this trip at this time? Sounds like a really bad idea in the first place. Your sister-in-law's not a big fan of this yearly tradition, having your family, your mother-in-law, and your additional sister-in-law stay at your house for a week, and chose not to work to have some time for herself. I'm more sympathetic to your sister-in-law here. She's not getting any vacation at all, and you're putting all the blame on her, not the other adults.